Druckenmiller has engineered the greatest comeback I've ever seen. Touchdown, check. There's the snap, ball down. Shane swings the leg through. This kick is in the air. It is good. It is good. Shane Graham wins it for Virginia Tech. Michael Vick makes a miracle happen in Morgantown. The edge of the hole took it right out of his hands. He said, "Give it to me, Roscoe. Give it to me."
Holy cow! Do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, young man.
It's a miracle in Blacksburg. Tyrod did it, Mikey. Tyrod did it.
Patterson to the end zone. Drives his way in. Virginia Tech has won it in 6 overtimes.
Welcome to Memory Lane, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm the host for the night, Sam Jessee, and I have the usual two compadres for Memory Lane, Robert Irby and Brett Smith. And we are joined tonight by a very special guest, columnist at sonsofsaturday.com, lifelong Hokie, one of the funniest people in the group chat, I think we can say. Paul Petera is joining us tonight as we talk the best Virginia Tech quarterbacks of the last 50 years. That's a top 25 list. Paul, thank you for writing this first off. Introduce yourself. What inspired you to write this list?
Thanks for having me, Sam. Appreciate you you three getting together with us and talking about this. This has been a fun little exercise. I'm a lifelong Hokie, sports stats nerd. I have not seen a long form ranking of Tech quarterbacks covering a long period of time. So I thought there was something to dig my fingers into. So love the stats part of it, loved breaking it down. I also have been to a lot of tailgates over the years, and how many times do we reminisce about past games and players over a cold beer? Kind of wanted to marry the two of these. I didn't want it to be just a statistical analysis of passing efficiency rating, though that's part of it. I really wanted to dig back and think about what some of these players contributed and where they fit in Tech history more from a qualitative perspective than just a quantitative perspective. So couple of clarifications. Yes, this is a ranking. Yes, I did create a weighted computation with qualitative adjustments to come up with the ranking. No, this is not a definitive ranking of Virginia Tech quarterbacks over the last 50 years. Others will have different opinions. Y'all might have different opinions. That's awesome. But more importantly, I wanted to shine a light on the small fraternity of quarterbacks. There was 36 quarterbacks that can say they've started a game at Tech in the last 50 years. Only 25 of them have started a whole season. So I wanted this to be sort of a memory lane celebration of that. And that's why I added a best moment to each quarterback. I wanted to make sure we shine that light.
If you haven't checked out the articles on sonsofsaturday.com, if you just Google like Sons of Saturday Virginia Tech quarterbacks, the articles will come up. Paul did an amazing job. It's a great read. It's a great read now. It'll be a great read in 2 years. I'm hoping we can add some guys pretty highly on the list to that. And I can't think of a better way to spend the offseason than talking truly 50 years of Hokie history. And if you're somebody who's the age of Robert, Brett, and I, or younger, maybe even a little bit older, you're going to learn something tonight. So, Robert, get us started with a cheers, and we will head into the QB talk.
Yeah, Sam, you led me into that perfectly. We're talking about some great and some not great Hokie quarterbacks, but let's cheers the next, hopefully great Hokies quarterback, Ethan Grunkemeyer. Am I right, fellas? Cheers.
No pressure, bud. No pressure.
No pressure.
Cheers.
Hope we don't regret this listening back in a year. We believe in you, bud.
So how we're going to structure this is we're going to talk kind of 5 quarterbacks at the time. We have some guys that we want to highlight. We're going to try to move through this in a decently quick manner. And if you are normally a listener on the podcast version, this is a perfect one to move to the YouTube for, because we're going to have some video highlights for some guys. We'll have the list right up there for you to reference. This is the perfect one to migrate to YouTube if that's not something you normally do. So I want to point that out there. Sons of Saturday YouTube channel where you can catch all Sons of Saturday content. All right, fellas, we ready to get going with our first 5 quarterbacks. Paul, I'll let you start, but we have number 25 through number 21 up on the board.
Awesome. I'm going to do a quick preamble because we did get a couple of questions. Where is Don Strock on this list? Any list that doesn't have Don Strock as a fraud? Has anybody heard of Don? Understand, we actually went through and did all of the research back to 1967, believe it or not. Ultimately picked 50 years. I included Don's stats and a mention of him in part 4 of the article, which you can read. I didn't include Strock. I didn't include Bob Schweikert. I didn't include Billy Holsclaw or Al Kincaid or Bruce Arians. One reason is I wanted there to be some consistency from a quantitative element. And going before 1987, the stats start to become a little less reliable, and you go back beyond 50 years and it becomes more so. I saw a lot of conflicting data in some of the information that I was pulling up, and I just wanted to make sure the data was right. Second, I think a half century is pretty comprehensive for an article series, so maybe I'll write a book and expand on these guys more. Third, I can say, I hate to say this because I still feel like I'm 27 and I'm not. I can say that I've seen every single one of these quarterbacks play. And if I went back any further, I couldn't do that. So that was the reason for 50 years. That was the reason that we settled on these guys. I wanted to make sure we put that to bed a little bit. All right, let's do a quick rundown of these 5. So David Lammy, arguably a more accomplished golfer from the Bristol, Tennessee area. He had 4 career touchdown passes in his illustrious Virginia Tech career. But his Hail Mary to Ron Zollicoffer in 1978, who had only 2 career touchdowns, mind you, solidified me being a lifelong Hokie. I was sitting in the East Stands watching that game, a little tot, and the celebration and the euphoria that happened in that stands made me verbally commit to no one in particular that I was going to Virginia Tech on that September 30th day. So that's kind of why I wrote this article too. Stats-wise, not very good, but he gave an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, whatever it was, a memory he'd never forget and launched me into lifelong Virginia Tech fanhood. Grant Wells put up great numbers at Marshall, just didn't translate at Virginia Tech. Albeit as Brent Pryl was trying to rebuild the roster and get his coaching staff in order, he has the fewest wins and the lowest winning percentage on this list. Todd Greenwood, peak Bill Dooley years, still big on the running game back then. Billy Height was actually the running backs coach already for several years at that point. Greenwood split time with Mark Cox his whole time that he was here, but still 4th in school history in passing yards when he left. Eric Chapman straddled the Bill Dooley and Frank Beamer eras. He was Dooley's last quarterback and Beamer's first. He was the first Hokie quarterback to win a bowl game. His biggest win may have been at Death Valley in 1986 against Clemson, but I think the edge does go to winning the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Braxton Burmeister to round out this 5, former Oregon Duck, another quarterback in a tough situation. His first year was COVID. His second year was the undoing of the Justin Fuente era. He did give us a great win over number 10 UNC to kick off the 2021 season, and what a great memory that was.
Yeah, that's the guy we have highlighted. We're going to pull up some of his highlights from that game against UNC, which was one of the most memorable Virginia Tech games of recent memory. And Brett, those 5 guys, I don't expect you to know much about Eric Chapman or Todd Greenwood, but Braxton Burmeister was so much fun and so close to being a Virginia Tech legend.
Yeah, I mean, he had some really, the UNC win at home, first game back COVID. I mean, everything that surrounded that game, just from a societal standpoint, to have a quarterback lead us to a big win like that after, basically taking a year off from sports, it felt like was huge, and I think people will remember him for that, and I think we're forever grateful for that. Obviously, we know his abilities as a true quarterback were limited, but he was tough as snot, and he fought as hard as he could for us with the abilities he had and the abilities of people around him. So, I have some great memories with him, but obviously there were some struggles there towards the end. But as you can see, the UNC game, just to think where we are today, 5 years later, coming up this fall to where we were after we beat UNC at home there. I think I went on a drunken rampage on Snapchat, sending people about how Mac Brown's a fraud and all this stuff. So, and how we're back, and it's just good memories definitely surrounding this game and him. But I do want to touch on Todd Greenwood real quick. I consulted my dad, who's a lifelong Hokie, much similar to Paul, and he just wanted to point out that he's forever grateful for creating probably the greatest memory ever in Lane Stadium, which is the brawl after the UVA game, winning it home in 1984. He said it was he says that's a day he will never forget. So I just wanted to at least give my dad a shout out and point that out.
Robert, Grant Wells, I wrote an article that I spent, I think I stayed up until like 3 a.m. researching and writing an article on Grant Wells and how this was a guy who could take Virginia Tech to the next level at quarterback, best arm talent Tech had in a while. And it just didn't work ever, really, for him.
No, and I love that this is the one I'm starting with. This is a bleak start to the episode.
It's 25 through 21. I mean, it's going to get better.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, first drive of that ODU game, or maybe it was the second drive, whichever the one was the first scoring drive where he ran for the touchdown. We were all ready to lie. And then, goodness gracious, everything else was a disaster. And, I mean, part of it is he had nobody to throw it to. Caleb Smith had a really great year that year, but it got to the point where like teams were essentially, I mean, it was like he was almost being triple teamed at points because they knew that he was the only one who could catch a pass. And yeah, the confidence was just never there. It just didn't land. So yeah, I don't know. That was just a hype train that went off the rails pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was really
pretty quickly.
Oh man. Well, I remember, talking to some of our podcasting friends from Marshall. I believe it's called a Thundercast or something like that. I'm blanking on it, but I had them on for a Behind Enemy Line show when we still did that. And they said point blank, like, hey, Grant Wells is probably somewhere in between the quarterback you saw at Marshall and the quarterback you saw at Virginia Tech. The reality was that freshman year at Marshall, where he looked really, really good, that was the best offensive line and wide receiver group that he had in college. Like just point blank. And I think in many ways, like the team around Grant Wells kind of let him down in the same way that I think Grant Wells got in his head a little bit and it really was never going to work out. But regardless, focus on the good times. Braxton Burmeister, that game against UNC was awesome. He was so close to winning that game at home against Notre Dame. I think a few coaching decisions go differently and one defensive stop, and he has two of the most legendary wins in Lane Stadium history. Like this guy was that close. And then the gutsy win against a good UVA team in Charlottesville. This is my school. This is home. Like Braxton Burmeister was really good in that game as well against UVA. So some good memories still here on 25 through 21. We are going to move though to number 20 through number 20, or excuse me, number 20 through number 16. Paul, take it away. Introduce the next five.
This could be a 30 for 30. These five just at least four of the five.
I just started laughing when I saw a few of these. I can't help it. Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure we really govern ourselves and not dwell too much on any one of these quarterbacks. Ryan Willis, super fantastic arm, 12th all time in passing at Tech, and he only started 14 games. Wow. 259 yards a game per start. 2.36 touchdowns per start. They are the highest numbers of anyone on this list. And he was on the Chicago Bears roster for a short time. And he gave us scared money don't make money. Mitchell Barnes, number 19. He was the first quarterback I ever saw. This was still in the Jimmy Sharp era, who was a Bear Bryant disciple, which meant we run. Barnes was not asked to do much. Obviously, he did do a lot of running. He won more than he lost. He had a small sample size, but his passing efficiency percentage is actually the second best on this list. But again, not asked to do too much. Six wins as a starter. Grant Knoll, never be the guy that follows the guy. I feel bad for him because expectations were really high for the team, and he was never going to be Michael Vick. And on top of that, he was a once mobile quarterback, and he had multiple knee injuries that took that element of his game away when he most needed it. And it ultimately cost him his job. He's still tied for fifth best winning percentage on this list, going 10-4 as a starter. Michael Brewer came here from Texas Tech, Austin Lake Travis, gamer, tough as nails. People say Druckenmiller and Logan Thomas were the toughest quarterbacks we've had around here, and they absolutely were. They were also beasts. Pound for pound, I say Michael Brewer and Al Clark may be the toughest guys on this list. Starting quarterback of arguably the best win and the ugliest loss in the last 30 years, and he's ninth all time in passing yards. Kyron Drones, Tyler Bowen grabbed him from Baylor out of the portal as the first quarterback for him to coach over here in Blacksburg. Similar to Noel, but for different reasons. I think the perception of Drones may soften a little bit with time. His career was marked with a lot of instability around him, but he didn't improve through his career like a lot of the quarterbacks on the list ahead of him. Tough, great athlete, heck of a runner. Not in the top half of this list as a passer, and he didn't win enough games.
Boy,
Before we go
Drones
to
over
Brett,
Brewer is going to get the people fired up.
Oh, man. Well, here, before we go to Brett, one thing I do want to
mention.
say about Michael Brewer, and I also want to say it about Grant Wells. Both of those guys, excellent golfers. Like very, very good golfers. Both
One
of
of
those
them,
guys.
excellent cowboy, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Brewer, 17th on this list. He's doing pretty well for himself. And I mean, Brett, is that the biggest win? Like, is that the biggest non-postseason win in school history at Ohio State?
Away win? I mean, I think yes. I mean, that team ended up winning the national championship, even though they switched quarterbacks. It's just in hindsight, I think you have to, because I mean, we beat a national championship team at home. I mean, at home with, I'd say the 2014 team was a above average team. I mean, that's just what they were. And it's just JT Barrett, gave us the game essentially. We can't deny that, but I mean, Michael Brewer and Marshawn Williams, they did everything they needed to do to win that game. To Paul's point, I think, people, give Brewer a lot of credit for being how tough he was, but he was pretty cerebral too. He didn't make too many mistakes. He never did anything above he was really supposed to, but he never really made a lot of mistakes. He was, we had nobody else at the time. That's why he came in. And that's, I think he really gave a really nice, ending to Beamer's, career. And, was able, I think, he did one of the most important jobs, which is to send Beamer out on maybe not the highest of notes, but, on a, he could sail off into the sunset. So that was a big task for him. Go ahead.
Robert, Kyron Drones. We could do a whole podcast on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex legacy. And I think we're going to look back and we're going to say that there are some games that Kyron Drones won for us almost single-handedly. And there's also going to be some games that he arguably lost for us single-handedly. And that's just kind of the way it is. But I think about that Cal game, even this past year on Thursday night, it's like, you know what? They were just like, all right, let's just run it down their throats. And Kyron thrived doing that. It was just those, he just never developed as a passer the way you needed him to. His processing speed just wasn't fast enough. Considering like how poor his offensive line was protecting him. And it's just, it's a big what if. I do want to shout out Ryan Willis real quick because as chaotic as a quarterback as he was, Sam, Brett, we were all seniors his year in 2018, and he gave us some great memories. I was there at both Duke and North Carolina. Duke, we were like, oh my God, we found Joe Montana, and he's in maroon and orange. And then he was terrible against UNC until the very last drive where Korn just kept calling the Dalton Keene flood over and over, and he's just peppering him with it. Took us right down the field. So I think with these guys, there's a lot of really good memories and some not great.
Yeah,
Willis,
I think. Well,
I
the
feel
one thing
bad for Drones though, because I feel I could say the same thing for probably a dozen quarterbacks on this list. Yes, he bears culpability for the lack of improvement over his career. Much like a lot of these other quarterbacks, though, it's not 1 versus 11. He had a lot of transition in coaching. He had a lot of transition on the offensive line. He had a lot of transition in the receiving core. You're not going to put percentages of blame on anything, but just like anything else, nothing is is absolute, and it just wasn't his development issues were not 100% his fault.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one thing I do want to add about Willis, I think he may have been just in a wrong system. I think he may have been better in a pass-heavy system. I think to me, his talents coming from Kansas and that offense that was going there at the time wasn't really what fit Corn's style. He was athletic, and I think that's why he was able to succeed at times. But, I think he was better with quick decisions, not necessarily on long reads and reading zones and stuff. I think, he had the arm talent. I think he just may have been in a different system. I mean, I have a very close friend of mine who was a manager, and he said from the 4 years he was there, he's the same age as me. So that's 2015 to, he was there 5 years, 2015 to 2020. He said Ryan Willis threw the prettiest football to anybody he'd ever seen go through while he's there is 5 years. He threw the hardest football too, but he said nobody threw it like him.
Yeah. Would have been good in like an air raid.
That's what Kansas was running. That's what Kansas was running at the time. That's where he came from.
Okay.
So.
Where is Michael Brewer on this list if he doesn't break his collarbone?
It's hard to say because, I mean, he had injuries both years, right? Yeah. And that was really what limited him was, y'all talked about the toughness, the intangibles, the IQ were all off the charts, but his physicality, like both in terms of arm strength, and he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't slow, but he wasn't the fastest, and ultimately he was fragile. So even if he doesn't break his collarbone, he's probably getting hurt somewhere else, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I know it's a cop-out answer, but
yeah, if he stays healthy, though, to answer your question, and he's in the top 7 or 8 in pass yards.
Oh, I think too, like those teams, injuries plagued those teams. Not a lot of people talk about the end of the Beamer era. I think we talk so much about the downfall of the program in terms of like administration, because that's kind of what we're focusing on now. We don't talk about those teams being injury riddled 2 consecutive years. Like that roster that won up in Columbus was not the roster that Virginia Tech had in October of that season. They were decimated with injuries. And the next year, Michael Brewer getting hurt in the third quarter of that game in the return game in Blacksburg against Ohio State. Like, I just think he never really got to have the career I think he could have had at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Tech might win 2 more games that year if he's healthy. We don't know.
Y'all were in the stadium for that second Ohio State game, right?
Yeah.
That was my first game as a student.
Yeah, all 3 of us. You felt the life suck out of that stadium.
That's what I was going to say. Remember the excitement that we had going into halftime?
The sunset
after the
was
third quarter. It was over.
I think the Sam Rogers spin move, I guess it wasn't a spin. It was more of a juke.
Juked out Eli Apple
going. Yeah. And then
the Braxton Miller spin move happened.
And then
it's like, let's go to Center Street.
Who's the wide receiver? I mean, Thomas. Who's the wide receiver they had that year?
Michael Thomas.
It was Michael Thomas.
Slant man.
He Braxton Miller
broke both of Fuller's ankles on a like. That team was so good.
They had Ezekiel Elliott. Like it was.
That team was so
Terry
nasty.
McLaurin. It was absurd.
It's okay. Like that's one of them where if Tech would have won that game, that would have been like an all-time upset. An all-time upset. It was an awesome game though, even in the loss. And Michael
There'd be
Brewer,
a statue of Michael Brewer sitting on the bench at Beamer Plaza.
Yeah.
I think this list, James Franklin, Willis, Brewer, Drones, Knoll as well. Like it's kind of a what could have been if things around them had been better list. These 5, I think, and that's how we'll round that one out as we move on to top 25 Hokie quarterbacks of the last 50 years. Number 15 through number 11, Paul, who we got on this 5?
Okay, Will Fuhrer, Steve Casey, Josh Jackson, Mark Cox, Al Clark. So Fuhrer, smart guy, great human being and leader, really good passer. Unfortunately played in a time where Coach Beamer was digging out of probation from the Dooley era. He missed 11 games in total over his 4 years due to injury. He was a better quarterback than his numbers indicate. And that's probably why he's in Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame, and it's probably why he played in the NFL. Fuhr is one of the only 2 quarterbacks in Tech history to lead the Hokies in passing for 4 straight years. The second quarterback is the next one, Steve Casey. Different era, of course, but Casey gave us stability for 4 years, took over in 78 when he could lean on Kenny Lewis at running back. And then for the balance of his career, he leaned on Cyrus Lawrence for 3 years. All Cyrus Lawrence did was run for 3,767 career yards, and that record has still not been broken in 2026. Josh Jackson, mixed emotions here. He came in blazing, felt like we were building something, broke his leg, transferred, never heard from him again. The memories of the FedEx win against West Virginia still linger, which is funny because there are probably still fans in their cars lingering in the parking lot trying to get out of FedEx. Mark Cox, big fan of Mark Cox, part of the duo with Greenwood. He was the Virginia High School Player of the Year, won 19 games. It's still 6th all time. Yes, a lot of credit goes to Bruce Smith for that, but he took us to the end of 84 Independence Bowl. He was 3rd all time in passing when he graduated. He's still 15th. It's crazy to think that Cox and Greenwood split time their entire careers, and when they left, they were 3rd and 4th in history in passing yards. And Al Clark, our starter between Druckenmiller and Vick, during a roster transition too. 97 team had no receivers at times due to injury. Clark himself missed a bunch of time with injury. There was a temptation to pull Michael Vick's number 18 redshirt jersey off in 98, but Beamer kept his word and he didn't. So Clark was left to bear a lot of that burden. He did leave on a high note, beating Alabama in the inaugural Music City Bowl, setting the table for 99.
There you go, Brett.
There you go.
Oh, that's an awesome. Anytime you can get the Hokie bird in some pads, that's good looking. So we're not going to be
in a
pulling
cowboy
up.
hat.
I mean, he's Nashville bachelorette party ready. What can I say? We're not going to pull up highlights from that game and that win over Alabama, but we are pulling up here some highlights of Josh Jackson FedEx win against West Virginia, the last time Virginia Tech won a non-conference game against a power conference opponent. 2017, Landover, Maryland. Brett, were you at this game?
Yes, I was. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. I'm not going to drag this out. So I went in with my now wife's family, and we were sitting with them, and all our friends were in the student section. So we were like, screw it, we're going to the student section. And I don't know if you guys were in the student section. So they put West Virginia student section and Virginia Tech student section next to each other, or like very close. And they were in the, I can't remember if it was the south. It was one of the end zones. I think it was the south end zone. And we were like in the nosebleeds. And the whole game, anytime one of the teams scored, it was just beers being hummed to the other fan base, and other way around. I mean, I probably spent $50 on beers, and I drank like one, probably. Like it was just an absolute chaos. And obviously, getting out of there unscathed was a challenge, but it was an amazing experience, and I had to throw away all my clothes. So, but it was, I mean, just a great memory. Obviously Josh Jackson, leading that win, we thought we had something, but we did. I felt at the time.
Kind of did.
Cam Phillips, we kind of did, and Cam Phillips was obviously the lone guy that after all of Bucky Hodges and Isaiah Ford left, so he was the guy. And I keep seeing number 15. Is that Sean Savoy? Is that who that is?
That's Sean Savoy.
Yeah. God, like I'm just like, it just makes me like smile thinking about all these random players sometimes. But I mean, yeah, he almost died. Right? Was it that play or the play before? We thought like he got, and we were like, oh my God, he's dead. After he got toppled over or whatever. But yeah, great memories from that game.
Yeah, one of the best nights of my life.
Yeah,
just hands down. Incredible night, incredible performance by him. I think. Like my question I had written down for this one is very similar to Michael Brewer, but like, where is he if he doesn't break his leg against ODU? And does Virginia Tech lose that game to ODU if he doesn't break his leg?
No, we would have had to win it like 63-54 or something.
I know. But like, it's one of those, we look back on him as like mediocre, man, that's 2017. They went 9-3.
Mhm.
Like he was winning some football games. He was getting the ball to some players. He had a good team around him. One of those what ifs. Robert, from these 5, Josh Jackson, I think, is the only one that we really watched a ton of. But what do you got on JJ?
Yeah, I mean, I almost view him in the same light as Michael Brewer. I think that they're like kind of similar players, have that same like kind of moxie and toughness and all that stuff, but are also just physically limited. I almost said limited. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, Josh Jackson was really good at, he could kind of be the point guard of the offense. It just wasn't a great fit because in 2017 and probably in 2018 as well, there just weren't a lot of people to pass it to. And, I mean, we kind of just needed somebody to open it up a bit more. I remember feeling like going to that Clemson game when we played Clemson at home. Game day was there. Bud Foster's defense was lights out against the reigning national champions at the time. But our offense just couldn't do anything. And that wasn't all on Jackson, but ultimately his limitations were still there. And combined with the other limitations the team had, the offense got really stale at the end of the year. So I don't know. I mean, he doesn't break his leg. Maybe he has a little more success as Hazelton and Trey Turner and those guys were coming into form. But I don't know. I think he kind of just was what he was.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of sad stories about the transfer portal, like guys playing really well, winning a lot of football games. He was 10 going into that ODU game. He was 10-4, right? Because that was the second game of the season for Virginia Tech. So he was 10-4, putting up good numbers, getting good wins. Kind of a freak play, breaks his leg real bad, out for that season, transfers to Maryland, plays a little bit at Maryland, but I mean, that place is a black hole for players, honestly. We'll talk about Maryland this season, but just one of those guys who found his way to College Park and then did nothing, and that was it. Kind of a sad college story for a guy who I thought was a really good player and a good competitor, a guy people wanted to play for. All right, we are going to take a quick beer break, real quick. Very, very excited for this beer I have. Robert, are you drinking anything?
I am. I'm going with an old classic. And that is the New Belgium Fat Tire.
Nice.
Because why not? It's great. I found a New Belgium variety pack at the grocery store, and so thought I'd pick it up. And can't beat the classics, man.
Can't beat it. Paul, how about yourself?
I'm calling an audible a little bit here. I just got into home brewing. This is my first attempt at brewing my own beer, and this is a beer that is based on the recipe of Russian River Brewing's Pliny the Elder double IPA. It's got about 1,400 hops in it, 7%, 7.6% ABV. I brewed it over the holidays, bottled it on January 6th, and at my first drink about 4 weeks ago. So it's pretty good, and it tastes even better when you make it yourself.
That's a hell of a recipe to try to create. Like you really went for it, because that's one.
Usually people homebrew like a little red ale or something, something that you can.
It's like a pretty distinguished beer you went for.
Yeah.
We're for sure going to have you.
When they sent me the hops, all the hops packets that come with it, I thought they sent me a double recipe or something. But no, they all go in.
We're going to have one of our off-season shows on Too Deep will be mostly beer talk, and we will definitely have you on to talk about home brewing, because I think that's fascinating. I think it's awesome. And you're drinking it now, so you seem to enjoy it at least somewhat. It is palatable, which is, I think, a good start for anybody doing homebrew. That's a win. We'll take that. I got myself here. I'm going through some. I've had it on Too Deep, mostly Wild East Brewing here in Brooklyn. This is the Puck Drop, which is great because shout out to the men's and women's ice hockey teams for the United States of America. Gold medal. All we do is win. The United States runs hockey now. There is nothing. This is so off topic. There is nothing like a run and playoff hockey and following a team that's winning those games. Something about that sport is breathtaking and anxiety inducing in all the best ways. So shout out to those teams. It's so much fun to watch them. But yeah, this is the Puck Drop. It's a West Coast Pale Ale. I got it here in the Virginia glass. It is pretty darn good for a pale ale. I'm not normally a pale ale fan, but you do get the hoppiness that you get with the West Coast, whether it's the West Coast Pale Ale or a West Coast IPA. Not a lot of flavor other than the hops, though. So if you're looking for, I'm a little more into sweets and sours, I'm a little more into stouts or something like that. I'm not really into the hop flavor. You might not like this one, but if you are into hops and you don't want something super tough like a West Coast IPA or a New England double IPA, this is a really good beer for you. Again, I'm not sure how much distribution they do outside of the tri-state area. But if you can find some, or if you're up here in the city and it's, Wild East does a good job of getting on tap at a lot of places, you can check it out. The Puck Drop from Wild East Brewing. Cool. They have cool can designs too. So I like that. All right. Anything else we got going on, fellas, for beer break before we move on to our top 10? This is where we're going to do the lion's share of our talking, right? So we'll pull up here the top 10 list. Paul, kick it off, because here's like, strap in, fellas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't do this on purpose, but after I started looking at these lists in chunks like this, I realized if there wasn't a more what if list of 5 quarterbacks, let me run through the what ifs for you really quickly. Marcus Vick, what if he ever had his head on straight? Impressive 143.3 passing efficiency ratio, went 11-2 as a starter, dual threat, had the swagger, but man alive. Sean Glennon, what if we could have preserved Tyrod's redshirt year in 2007? That's more of a existential Virginia Tech question than it is a Sean Glennon question. Tough deal on him. He lost his starting job in 2007. Then he was asked to get back in the saddle after Tyrod sprained his ankle. Ended up playing a lot the rest of the year in 2007. Hung in there, was the MVP of the ACC championship game, started 4 games in 2008, but the team was essentially Tyrod's by that time. And I think he kind of struggled with how all that went down. But still, 18 and 8 as a starter, 4,867 yards and 28 touchdowns. He's 8th all-time in passing yards. Hendon Hooker, what if he did what he did at Tennessee while he was still wearing maroon? What a weird career at Tech. He had the best all-time career passing efficiency rating, the second highest QBR in a season on this list. He's 6th on this list in rushing yards, and he only started 15 games. Jerod Evans, what if he just stayed one more year? He was a revelation as a JUCO in Fuente's first year. We were all thinking great thoughts. I know I was. 29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, the best TD interception ratio on this list. And then Maurice DeShazo, what if Ricky Bussell didn't leave as offensive coordinator for South Carolina? DeShazo's best year was the first year of the bowl streak, and things just felt different when he was under center in 93. Watching that team, he was at the time our best dual threat quarterback ever. His passing efficiency in 93 was 4th in the country. He played so well in Bussell's offense, and then Bussell left for a year, and then he came back in 95. DeShazo had to adapt to Gary Tranquil's offense. It was never really a good fit. We still went to the Gator Bowl. Perhaps the biggest thing, though, in terms of DeShazo and the Tech program is he opened the door for a lot of elite Virginia talent to choose Tech. Prior to that, there was not a lot of elite talent that was coming there. But right after him was Cornell Brown, and the floodgates kind of opened. So give him a lot of credit. Bassett High School, really, really talented quarterback.
All right. A lot to unpack with these 5 guys. Brett, I'm going to start with you. And my question is Marcus Vick the biggest what if in Virginia Tech football history?
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of what I was going to lead off with. I think I don't know if I've mentioned on any of these before, but I'm a 757 native, Peninsula native. I grew up in Williamsburg, where there's a quarterback coming up that we'll talk about. And I'll talk about from a personal standpoint, but not too far from Newport News. I have family that were near Newport News. Obviously, Michael Vick. When everybody heard he had a little brother, everybody was like, he can't be as good. There's just no way. Turns out, Marcus was as good as Michael, and actually probably a better quarterback from a complete standpoint. I mean, Michael was obviously unique. Nobody had ever seen anything like him before from a running standpoint and the crazy arm strength. But Marcus was when you're looking like a pro, like he was the perfect combination of mobility, arm strength, size. He was bigger than Michael, and he really had everything that Michael didn't outside of the speed, almost, I'd say. And that's, I think, a lot of people also would agree with. So to answer your question, based on that, yes. Thankfully, there was a quarterback from Williamsburg that was able to relieve the issues, time in and time out for those years. But, I think he is up there for the probably biggest what if not the biggest.
I mean, I'm not going to put it all on one person's shoulders, but I don't think it's a crazy take to be like, if Mike Vick is healthy in 2000 and if Marcus Vick has his head on his shoulders throughout his career, Tech might be in 2 other national title games.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think
2000 and 06. I think Tech could have
we
made
had the number
natty.
1 defense in the country in terms of total defense.
By a mile, too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's still, I'm pretty sure Georgia just beat it. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Like they just beat the record, beat our
the like
defense record.
SP plus. Yeah.
Yeah. They were which is crazy.
So, Robert, you get the next somewhat sad what if question, but this isn't sad actually. I think this is a hindsight's 2020. But why don't we look back on Sean Glennon with fonder eyes? He won a lot of football games in Orange and Maroon.
He did. I think that just his placement in like the Virginia Tech timeline of quarterbacks was just so unfortunate because ultimately he is the guy who had to replace Marcus Vick a year early. And then he became the guy that was keeping us away from Tyrod in a lot of people's eyes.
He was completely different from any of the other quarterbacks we had in the last 8 years.
Yeah. And like, you know what? Fans, especially Virginia Tech fans and you'll see, when we get to the top of this list, it's a lot of dual threat quarterbacks. Like the best quarterbacks in Virginia Tech history could run the ball. And it's exciting, right? Sean Glennon, in terms of quarterbacking, was not exciting, right? He took a lot of sacks because he just wasn't mobile. And honestly, like his offensive lines weren't great. Obviously, Dwayne Brown became like a, potential Hall of Fame left tackle, but otherwise the offensive lines in that era weren't great. I don't know. I just think he was a victim of circumstance more than anything. And to be fair, he did have some stinkers as well.
Yeah.
The Chick-fil-A, the Peach Bowl or whatever it was where, he couldn't stop giving it to the dudes in red and black. That was tough.
I was there. However, that's like the first bowl game I think I remember.
But he was also only a sophomore at that point. So
all-time ugly uniforms from Georgia in that game. Now, Virginia Tech has worn some heinous uniforms in Atlanta, but my God, Georgia, what are you doing? I mean, you have the classics. What are you doing?
Silver linings, you lost to a Super Bowl MVP, and Super Bowl champion. Super Bowl MVP at 40 years old. I mean, MVP at 40 years old.
Not a bad Matt Stafford, one of the many like elite first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks Virginia Tech ended up playing in bowl games. Add him to the Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers list.
Brett Favre, not in a bowl, but Brett Favre.
Brett Favre, yeah, that's true. The next sad question on this one, I'll give to Paul. Why did Justin Fuente never fully buy into Hendon Hooker? Paul, you're muted.
Paul.
Oh, I know you were saying something profound.
Dang, he was spitting.
It was maybe the most profound thing, and I will never, ever replicate it. I don't think anybody really knows except maybe the two of them and maybe only one of them. There were circumstances that just seemed weird. The COVID year was weird. The Clemson game was weird. The interplay in the press was weird. I don't know what promises were made, what assurances were made, what promises were broken. I will say that as a lifelong student of leadership and observer of cultures, there was no trust between the two of them. It sure didn't seem like it. So when trust breaks down, somebody leaves, and that seems to be what happened. I have no idea why he did not trust him with the reins. Now, I will say there's a couple of meaningful examples of things that happened, like the Clemson game where the game plan was to bleed the clock, and early in the game, Hooker was breaking the huddle and snapping the ball with 24 seconds on the clock, and it incensed Fuente. That may have been a catalyst. That may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Not really sure.
Yeah. And that was a game, too, where it was very obvious that Hendon mentally wasn't in the right spot to be playing the Clemson Tigers.
Correct.
Like mentally was so locked out of that game where you were like, this might be a safety issue. And so I think that's right. For me, I look back at that and it's those two guys didn't trust each other, because if you remember, there was that night in Virginia Tech Twitter lore that will live on forever. I remember it because I was on the treadmill in McComas when it was happening. Our whole damn team entered the transfer portal like at once. Yeah. And Hendon Hooker was part of that. And we didn't really know what was going on. And that was before the transfer portal was really part of the norm in college football. And I think that was one of the, and that was just one of the things. It was always weird because he was the face of the program / part of the rebuild. And it just never really felt like those two clicked. Now, obviously, Josh Heupel is a different kind of offensive mind at Tennessee, and the type of offense he runs is perfect for a player like Hendon Hooker. So that I think helped Hendon's prospects a little bit more. And then the next
frustrating thing, though, Sam, is it's frustrating because he was in the right mental state to the point that it got him to New York City and won him all kinds of hardware in the SEC, and that was. Well, I tell you what, the meme of or the gif of Chandler looking out the window with the rain just pouring down the glass, and is us looking at Hendon Hooker in Knoxville.
Absolutely, Brett. We'll move on to Jerod Evans as I pull up one of the craziest and maybe most underrated plays in Virginia Tech history. This Jerod Evans run against a pitiful ECU team. Is that the best season in Virginia Tech history for a quarterback? Statistically, it is by far, but like vibes.
Yeah. Wise. We were all too young for Michael Vick. I think Paul would probably say Michael Vick is probably, from a vibe standpoint, watching Michael Vick from a quarterback, he probably can't be beaten. And that's what my dad has said. But, in terms of trusting a quarterback fully, that was the first time it had happened since Tyrod, I would say. I mean, Logan Thomas, I guess, which wasn't that far, back. That was, 3-4 years back. But, we haven't trusted a quarterback that well since then, though. I mean, if you really look at it in 10 years, when driving us at the ball, we knew something good was going to happen. It was rare something bad happened. And I think that goes to your point, Sam, which is he the best, one of the most memorable or one of the most, best quarterbacks from that standpoint? I think the answer is had a lot of weapons around him, which helped. Running game wasn't that great. I mean, Trayvon Millen was good, but he wasn't amazing. Had nobody behind him, So he really was doing it all a lot on his own, and with some help, obviously, with some really talented wideouts. But to answer your question, I think at least since then, for sure, I think he's the last one quarterback we put all our trust in and felt good about.
Yeah, I think statistically nobody's come close to that, and I legitimately think if he stays another year, he's in New York for the Heisman ceremony, and that's it's not crazy if you look at
it's not.
If he was more known at the start of that 2016 season, he might have been there that year. Now, of course, the loss to Syracuse kind of would have tampered that down. But man, it's just a special talent.
Yeah, he would
Yeah,
need
I mean,
Ford.
it's him.
He would need Ford and Bucky to come back too. I think though.
That's what
I
I,
think
was
they
going to say.
would've.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like you're talking about Bucky was a 6th round pick, Ford was a 7th round pick, and Jerod went undrafted. It's not out of the realm of possibility that looking back, maybe they all should have stayed. But
I mean, Cam Phillips, leading wide receiver in Tech history, was very, very good in the XFL. I don't know how he didn't get picked up by a pro team. And then currently wide receiver coach for the Hokies, Cam Phillips. That team was kind of loaded. And Tech had a good run of tight ends there too.
Yeah. The 2017 defense was the best defense. The following year, the 2017 defense was the best defense since 2006, I believe. Yeah. I think it was since that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, I think there were 8 NFLers on that defense.
Very good defense. Very good defense. Robert, you get the last question for this 5. Is Maurice DeShazo the best quarterback name you could possibly imagine?
Well, there was another quarterback that played at Clemson in the early 2000s. I only know this because my father-in-law brings him up, but his name was Woody Dantzler, and that's also
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But the only thing I'll say about DeShazo is I think that was a formative time in my parents' years as fans because neither of them went to Virginia Tech, but they just always lived in the area, so they just were going to games kind of as Beamer was picking things up. And my dad always talks about how every time DeShazo would do anything wrong, and DeShazo went through the ringer unnecessarily, but it was just people yelling everywhere, put in Druckenmiller, put in Druckenmiller. So now my dad has this running joke where anytime something bad is happening to a Virginia Tech offense, he just yells, put in Druckenmiller. So sorry, Maurice, that's a joke at your expense.
Well, certainly one of the players who was part of building Virginia Tech as a football school. And I don't think that's talked about enough because when we talk about the formative years of Virginia Tech, I think people want to, national media wants to just talk about Michael Vick in 99. Virginia Tech fans, I think they stop at 95 with Druck and the Sugar Bowl team. Nobody really goes prior to that unless you're talking Bruce Smith. Give some credit to those early 90s teams and those guys who really started the bowl streak back when winning bowl games meant a whole lot and also kind of started the recruiting movement that led to those very good teams in the mid to late 90s. We're going to do a quick ad break here for Roback. Our friends at Roback crave activity. You can use code 2DEEPVT. That's TWODEEPVT for 20% off your first order. You have, the ad read for this normally says hoodies, sweats, joggers. It's literally everything now. Puffer jackets, we got them. Joggers, we got them. T-shirts, we got them. Crew neck sweatshirts, we got them. Everything you need. Roback Creative Activity, 20% off your first order when you use code 2DEEPVT. And also, by the way, with that, they have a bunch of college gear. They have a bunch of new prints. They're constantly adding stuff. Check it out. They're always adding new products at Roback. Are we ready to move to our top 5? Paul, take it away. The top 5 Hokie quarterbacks of the last 50 years.
Whew. I could spend all day on these 5. It's crazy. Logan Thomas, Lynchburg, Virginia. Crazy to think that a natural tight end threw for nearly 2,000 more yards than any other quarterback in Tech history. He's the only quarterback to ever start 3 consecutive seasons without missing a start. He's also the last primary starting quarterback for Tech from the Commonwealth of Virginia. When he had Cole and Boykin and David Wilson, he was something else. When they left, Tech had to lean on him to carry a lot of the running load, and his passing efficiency dropped considerably. He was a part of the beginning of the slide, I guess, of the Beamer era in terms of success. He did throw a lot of picks. He had the lowest winning percentage of the quarterbacks on the top 5 list, but he did a ton of good, and I'm glad he's a Hokie. Ended up with a really successful NFL career, and now he's back in Lynchburg at Brookville coaching high school. Jim Druckenmiller took us to our first 2 major bowls and our first major bowl win. He was 20-2 over his last 22 games. He had the best comeback in Tech history at the time. He beat Miami for the first 2 times ever for the Hokies. He was a weight room junkie, so the offensive linemen loved him. He had a cannon for an arm. Incidentally, had a great interview with this podcast with Rich and Pete last year, which was a great watch. So go watch that if you haven't. Brian Randall had very little polish, in my opinion, when he started playing for us. I thought his arm was on the weaker end, but man, he worked hard. He was smart. He kept learning. He kept digging. And by that 2004 season, he was the portrait of a strong leader. Randall's the primary reason, in my opinion, that Tech won the ACC in 2004. And I think it's hard to overstate how important winning that title in year one was in the ACC and on the national landscape. Michael Vick, what left is there to say about Michael? Without him, Tech doesn't move into the next echelon. Tech doesn't go to the national championship. Michael was transcendent. He changed the game. He was beyond special to watch live. He led the nation in passing efficiency, and no one noticed because he was doing all these video game moves as well. As I wrote in the article, there's a meaningful, absolutely meaningful case to put him number one on this list. And if you do, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I happen to use criteria that bumped him to number 2, but there's no telling where we would be if we didn't have him. And then Tyrod, number 1, over 7,000 yards passing, second all time, 23 rushing touchdowns, second all time. No one has as many rushing yards as a quarterback than Tyrod, 2,196. No one else played an integral role in 3 conference championships. But I'll say it again. Imagine if Tyrod redshirted.
I mean, I'd go to war with any of these 5 guys at quarterback. That's just flat out. So we'll start at number 5 here with Logan Thomas. I'm going to pull up here some LT3 highlights because with Logan Thomas, one of the things that isn't talked about enough is like this dude wasn't a trained quarterback. He just kind of showed up and they were like, hey, we kind of need you to play quarterback here. Where would he have ranked, Paul, all time as a Virginia Tech tight end, knowing what we know now from his NFL career, which was exceedingly successful?
Coached well with that consistency at playing that position. You could say he would be the best tight end all time. Who's to say? Who knows? But he clearly started in the league as a quarterback and still transitioned to tight end and had a productive 7-year career, I think. So, yeah, I think he would do great at Tech as a tight end, and I think he would have been quite successful. He even caught a touchdown as a tight end his freshman year. I
had a flip cell phone video of that, and the guy next to me, because we kind of sat in that corner back then, and the guy next to me yells, "Jump ball, go get it," and he catches it, and it's like the best I need to find it and put it in the group chat. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, we're seeing some Logan Thomas highlights up here. A lot of these highlights are him on the road at Miami. And if you are a Virginia Tech historian or a longtime Virginia Tech fan, you know that beating Miami gives you a knock up in terms of rankings here. I just feel like his game at home against Miami, these people are losing their mind games, it goes down as like one of the most special games and special moments in Virginia Tech history for me. That's incredible. Like I sometimes just pull that up on YouTube randomly because it's that awesome. Number 4 on the list. Well, first off, any other Logan Thomas talk from Brett or Robert, because pretty awesome quarterback.
Yeah, I'll be just real quick. I think Logan Thomas, we talk about like athletic freaks. I think he falls number 2 probably behind Michael Vick in quarterbacks, I think, in Virginia Tech history, because he was a tight end and he could run the ball, he could throw the ball, he could catch the ball. Like it's very unique. And kind of on top of that little side story, Logan Thomas, one of my best friends, his older brother, was at Tech like during the prime Logan Thomas era. Logan Thomas is a hell of a basketball player too. Like could have played at the next level of basketball. He played intramural basketball with Bruce Taylor against coach's advice like every week. And one of my buddies, they played in like the A League or whatever, and they play against them, and he said almost every week, coaches, I won't name who, would come in and yank them out of intramurals because they would be playing because they loved it so much. But he said Logan Thomas was the best basketball player he had ever seen, and my friend's brother played some high level basketball in high school.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker, very good intramural basketball player.
Extremely good basketball player.
Yeah, my college roommates had played him twice. That was tough. Yeah, last thing I'll say on Logan, I think to answer your tight end question, he would have been number one, best tight end in Tech history. I don't think that's necessarily that high of a bar to clear. We've had a lot of tight ends with potential, but there haven't been a ton that have like really put it together. Like I feel like Mike Burnap is always just kind of viewed as the GOAT at that position for Tech.
The bar is like Jeff King. That's it.
Right. Yeah,
Jeff
sure.
King's numbers aren't like Jeff King
King's
was
good.
awesome, but we didn't throw to the tight end very heavily that year.
No, but even that fade catch that you talked about, like that Tyrod threw him an end zone fade, he caught it one-handed. Like it was, I remember in the stadium being like, why is this guy a backup quarterback again? Like, could really use him right now. But yeah, I don't know. And who's to say if we would have maybe made more of a run at Taj Boyd, because that timeline was a little wonky because they were the same class. And, I don't know. That would have been pretty special.
Would have been special indeed. Number 4 on our list, Jim Druckenmiller. I think, first off, if you haven't listened, search on YouTube, search on the podcast for Sons of Saturday with Jim Druckenmiller. It's an incredible interview, a lifelong Hokie, an absolute legend. Maybe for this play alone, Paul, take us back tonight. What did this play mean to the program?
Well, remember, this was the year we started 0-2 and then won the rest of our games and won the Sugar Bowl. Maybe we don't go to the Sugar Bowl if we don't win this game, but the lore here is going to Charlottesville and then having a 15-point deficit in the second half that you come back from. Winning in Charlottesville is always, as you know, a hoot. But the moxie that he had, the way that we came back and won this game, the throw into the end zone, the pick six by Antonio Banks to close the game. A buddy of mine was standing in the end zone and actually ran, and you'll see him. He ran right into the pile as they were celebrating in the end zone. We knew we were going to be going to a big bowl at that point. It was huge because this was at the time the apex of our college football fandom and for Virginia Tech history. We'd never gone this high and this far. Certainly hadn't won 10 games in any of our lifetimes. So this was huge. And despite the video footage here, we saw it crystal clear. It was awesome.
Is this where they took the goalpost down? Is this game where
We didn't do it in
Tech
this
fans?
game. No.
What game? I can't remember I can't remember which UVA game that was where the Tech fans took the UVA goalpost down. I can't remember which one that was.
This was fantastic though, and he made a lot of really key catches. What's funny is that the hitch and go that he threw here to Jermaine Holmes, he actually threw that pass 2 or 3 times in the game. I think he threw it to Brian Still a couple of times. This is the first one that he threw to Holmes, who actually spent time on the Tech staff over the last decade or two. So, just a fantastic experience here. And as you see this pick six here,
Tries to trip him.
Joe Geek tries to trip him, and Tiki Barber right there is trying to save the tackle.
Man, if you're a younger Virginia Tech fan, you don't know that 95 team was so special. I would dig it up on YouTube, find that game against UVA, and then find the game against Texas in the Sugar Bowl. First off, the uniforms are iconic. They look incredible. The big shoulder pads, guys look like they're moving a million miles. It's so cool. And it was so important for the program. And it's also one of those games where non-Virginia Tech fans know about that Virginia Tech team that started 0-2 and then ended up winning the Sugar Bowl. Future father-in-law's massive Wahoo, been going to games for decades. And when I first met him and talked about Virginia Tech football, he brought up that 95 game against Virginia Tech. Like that game is cemented in the minds of a whole generation of football fans in the Commonwealth. Any other thoughts on
Corso story on that? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Continue your thought.
No, please go.
Corso thought he was obviously on game day by that point. Corso actually was the color commentator in the '86 Peach Bowl. I think it was, if it wasn't his first assignment, it was close. But leading up to the Sugar Bowl, he was pretty rude about his comments about whether or not Virginia Tech belonged in a bowl like the Sugar Bowl. And to Lee Corso's credit, after we beat Texas 28-10, he came on ESPN the next day and said that he was wrong and that Virginia Tech belonged, and he got it. And I thought that showed a lot of why you should respect Lee, and that's why he's been so beloved, is he's gone on the air and done type things like that. And that's the first time that I ever changed my opinion of somebody that I can think of in the media. And he was one of my favorites after that.
And he was a champion he championed us more than probably most schools at our level compared to like the SEC and a few Big Ten powerhouses, through the 90s and 2000s. He championed us more than just about anybody in college football.
Absolutely. Also, Jim Druckenmiller, I believe he could squat like a small compact car. There are videos of him squatting at the San Francisco 49ers facility that will blow your mind. Dude, all-time dude, Jim Druckenmiller. Number 3 on this list, Brian Randall. I didn't have a clip for Brian Randall. I apologize, Coach Randall, but he is Coach Randall right now. I believe he's still at William & Mary, correct, Brett?
Yeah, he is. Yep, he is with the Tribe.
My question there is, he's getting a lot of respect there. The Tribe are putting up some points under him. Obviously, incredible career at Virginia Tech, ACC champion quarterback, like so well respected in the Virginia Tech community. Do we ever see him in Blacksburg as a coach? Because it feels like it would.
It's hard to say.
Maybe I just want to see it to happen.
I would love to. I'm a Williamsburg native. Brian Randall is obviously the local legend. Williamsburg, we have a few. Lawrence Taylor being, probably number 1. Brian Randall's probably right behind him. So it would be awesome. I think his family really loves Williamsburg. He came on the podcast with Rich. I can't remember if Pete did that one with him or not, but I know Rich was on it. And, he really loves Williamsburg. He's really enjoying coaching at William & Mary. I'm sure he would take the Virginia Tech quarterback coach job if it came open. He loves Blacksburg as well. But, he has from a personal connection, it's just really neat. Williamsburg's not like a known athletic play. Like, there just doesn't turn out a lot of athletes. It's a retiree town. It always has been. So, it's to have somebody like that, it was really neat as a young kid. I was 7, 8, 9 years old to have somebody from Williamsburg, lead the team. It was really cool for me and my family and a lot of other Hokie families in Williamsburg.
Robert, Brian Randall and that 04 team, like that was about when we were becoming more than sentient, but like we could follow a team for the first kind of around that 03 to 04 years. He really felt like a guy who, if you put him in a more modern offense, what could he have been? Because you look back at highlights of him and he'll all of a sudden just scramble and you're like, whoa, he's really fast. Why aren't they running like a spread with him or something? And then you just get back under center and fall off. Like, that 04 team, so important. What are your memories of that team and your memories of Brian Randall? And, he really was a part of not only for the football program, but for Virginia Tech as a whole, the transition from underdog to big boy athletics program.
Yeah, he was the first jersey I ever owned. Was a Brian Randall jersey. My parents put me in one when I was 7 years old. So he's kind of always in my brain, like kind of my first favorite player, I guess. I'll be honest, I probably spent more time in Lane Stadium wearing that jersey playing Mario Kart on my Game Boy. Because I was that kid for a little bit. But you'd kind of just feel, I guess, the residual excitement like from your parents, and I think that like getting into the ACC was a big deal, and then winning it in our first year, my dad and all his buddies were pretty fired up. So yeah, he'll always be looked at pretty fondly for me, and also a great basketball player. So
yes, really great basketball player. It's just really disappointing how his career kind of ended with the Sugar Bowl. Just how that game went. We just could not move the ball. It was a really good Auburn team, obviously. A lot of NFL draft picks that year. We held them to almost no points, and they had one of the best offenses in the country that year. And we just, we just couldn't move the ball. And that's just like I regret it for him. It's just he had, he could have really just, that would have been just a landmark win for the program. Another one on top of the ACC that year, and so that's a game I always think about for him. It wasn't really to his discredit or anybody. It was just a tough game. So
two pieces of college football history for people. First off, that Auburn team went undefeated in the SEC and didn't make the national title game.
Unbelievable in today's era.
Two first round running back draft picks, I believe.
Yep.
Cadillac
Ronnie
Williams
Brown.
and
Ronnie Brown,
Special team. Also, Virginia Tech won the ACC that year. That was before the actual championship game, correct? Like they won that game by winning at Miami last week of the season. So like that was, man, it was a
article
noon game.
Yeah,
was that like a noon game or something?
It was an early game. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
There's a short video. Obviously, it's 04, so the video quality is a little sketch, but it's the down the stretch play from Randall to Eddie Royal. It's a beautiful pass against Antrell Roll. I'll tell you this: the players loved playing with and for Brian Randall. It was clear. He was the leader. And I have you two examples. What was funny about that time too is that beamerball.com was the place to go for information, and they had a nice little operation there. And for a time, they were feeding us locker room celebrations and that sort of thing. And this is one of the years that they were doing this. 2 games in that year, there was a comeback against Georgia Tech in Atlanta. We were down by 8 with like 5 minutes left. And Randall hit Eddie Royal on a long touchdown and Josh Morgan for a long touchdown. And then we had a pick 6 late after that. And there was just this eruption in the locker room, and everybody's around Randall. And kind of the same thing after we beat Miami down in it was still in the Orange Bowl, in the visitors' locker room. It was as emotional as you can get. And you're right, that was the one year they didn't have a championship game because BC hadn't come to the league yet, and you had to have 12 teams in the league to have a championship game. So yeah, we had to actually win it on the field in a regular season game to do it. But similar deal though. Everybody was so stoked, so emotional. Bud Foster was crying in the locker room, but everybody just rallied around Randall, and which is what a great leader.
Yeah, and I always there's one thing
awesome.
Yeah, I know we need to keep moving. One thing I think about is, obviously Randall split time the year before his senior year, not split, but Mike Marcus was getting on the field quite a bit, and it's something you had to, everybody was obviously, I feel like the cards were a little bit against Brian, because the name Vick, obviously everybody wanted to see him and everybody heard about him. And then Marcus gets suspended the following year. If we didn't have Brian Randall, who knows what that team would have looked like. So, I mean, he really, kudos to the coaching staff, to being able to have 2 quality quarterbacks like that. I mean, really quality quarterbacks like that on staff. But Marcus gets suspended. Who knows what that season and Brian Randall's career looks like and Marcus' career looks like, going back to the what if. So, but that's not to take anything away from what Brian Randall did for sure.
Well, it's going to be hard to sum up this next guy. But Robert, I'm going to ask you to do your best. Michael Vick, one of the most iconic players in college football history. I don't even know really what the correct question to ask is. I really thought about this, and I was like, I don't know if I can say anything that the highlights that we're showing on the screen here don't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's just iconic. Like, he's just the most iconic player in Virginia Tech history, and he's one of the most iconic players in the history of college football. And there's much to be said. When the Vick documentary came out, and Bomani Jones is on there and is making it seem like, oh, Michael Vick like single-handedly carried this team to the national championship. The rest of the team was a bunch of nobodies, etc. And I know some Tech fans certainly took issue with, especially the oversight of the defense and like Corey Moore, John Engelberger. But like, when the national championship game happened, like Tech got down 28-7 early, and Vick brought him back. And it just became clear that he was just this special player. And I mean, I would certainly love to put Vick in a time machine and drop him into an offense in 2026 and just see the absurd numbers he'd put up. Because, I mean, realistically, he wasn't really throwing very many passes.
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And that's they were running that like power option offense, under center, and it was just pretty simple, and he'd just make the impossible happen.
I'll throw this to Brett real quick before we go back to Paul to talk about number 2 versus number 1. Brett, if you look at Michael Vick's stats in college, right? The stats from Michael Vick, they don't necessarily wow you as much.
Mm-mm.
He's a very, very efficient passer. Didn't throw a lot. You look at the highlights, though, and you think, how in the world did this guy not win multiple Heismans? It's one of the greatest highlight packages of all time. In a way, did Virginia Tech not get everything out of him that they could have? I mean, they won a lot of games, but like Robert said,
Ricky
not a
Bustle's
spread option team.
Yeah, like Ricky Bustle's offense was not curated. I don't think anybody knew what Michael's capabilities truly were until he got on the field. And I think Michael will even tell you that. He didn't practice. He didn't study film. Nobody really knew what this guy was capable of. And this was, I mean, there wasn't a quarterback like him ever in the history of college. In the history of football, there had never been a quarterback like him. So, I don't think it's really at fault that nobody in this coaching staff could curate anything, because there was no offense that existed that could really get anything more out of him, and he didn't, like I said, he has said it countless times, and there's a great interview he does with Lamar Jackson. I think he did it about 8 or right when Lamar Jackson got in the league. He basically said, I studied no film. I never practiced. I just went out there and played ball. That's pretty much what he said. And that's what he did. And that's how he won games. So did the Tech get the most out of him? I guess from a statistical standpoint, probably not, but they did in the sense that they just let him play. To your Heisman thing, if freshmen were allowed to win the Heisman, or it was kosher for freshmen to win the Heisman in 1999, he would have won the Heisman. That was pretty much the only reason he didn't win the Heisman, because freshmen were not allowed, or it was not respect. It was frowned upon for freshmen to win the Heisman in 1999. Johnny Manziel was the first one, 2012.
Highlight. Show me one clip of Ron Dane that's circulating on Twitter right now. I bet you can't find one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it wasn't kosher then. Where it is now. Yeah. And it took 70 years, 80 years for that to happen.
And I think part of the craziness with Vic too is like he did the same thing in the NFL. like even Lamar has had to change his game in the NFL compared to what he was doing at Louisville. Like Vic did the same shit for the Falcons. It was unbelievable. And he even did it later in his career when he was with the Eagles. And it's incredible what he was able to do on the football field for a guy his size to have the arm strength he had. Like physically didn't make any sense for him to move as quick as he did. He's one of one. There'll never be another Michael Vick.
I'm really excited to hear what Paul has to say, because Sam, Robert, and I were too young really to understand live what it was like. And I pretty much
it was my son's age, which is kind of crazy to think about. But
so it's just like, I talked to my dad about it, what he has to say. So I'll kick it to Paul. I'm just really interested from his perspective, watching that live, what that was like.
It's having seen every one of his games, having been at live almost all of his games over that 2-year period, you were still mouth open saying, what did he just do? Multiple times a game, it seemed like. He was a magician. The thing about it is he had the escapability, which was video game-ish, but he had this gear. The first time we saw it was James Madison, and he had his first breakaway touchdown. It was a second touchdown, but I think he was running right down the middle of the field, and 2 James Madison guys had the angle, and he blew the angle up by like 10 yards. So he had speed that nobody had ever seen. He had quickness that nobody had seen. He had escapability that nobody had ever seen. And he had this flick of a release that seemed to throw the ball 70 yards without any effort. And he connected with Andre Davis frequently on those types of things. You're right. We didn't need to use him a lot. We pulled him a lot. We leveraged the defense and the running game a lot. I'm so thankful we got to see him play live. He, the game in Morgantown, what he did there, because that Morgantown game in '99 was one of those vintage Tech's going to blow this games, because we played terrible all game, but we still had a lead. We blew the lead late, and here we are with less than 2 minutes left, and Mike pulls a rabbit out of a hat with Shane Graham's assist at the end. It was fantastic. Just a privilege to have gotten to see him play. He's ridiculous, just absolutely ridiculous.
I'll say a quick side note, just an interesting fact of like just being a local to the area about Michael Vick. There's only one other athlete from this area in the state of Virginia, people say, that had anything close to Michael Vick's athletic ability at quarterback. Do you guys know who that might be? Just curious.
Ronald Curry.
Well, yes, and that's the only reason. Another side tangent, we got Michael Vick is because Ronald Curry was the Sam's got the Tyrod highlights playing, but
whoops.
but that's the only reason we got Michael Vick was because Ron Curry was the heralded recruit of Virginia. I mean, Michael was actually a little bit under recruited, but it's not Ron Curry, it's Allen Iverson. Everybody around here says Allen Iverson from playing quarterback was pretty much the only other player that looked like Michael.
How tall was Allen Iverson?
Same size,
he was like
6'1".
Yeah, I mean, was Vic 6'1"?
Sure.
Was he really 6'1"?
Yeah, I don't know.
I've seen Mike Vick stand next to some normal-sized people.
5'11.5".
Yeah, so I just always found that interesting. People say the only player in
right?
Virginia history that had the same ability as Michael Vick at football was Allen Iverson.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, I mean, a special era in Virginia high school athletics and college athletics too. I mean, people forget like Curry was a demon at UVA. Like people forget that, and he also was a Carolina basketball recruit. Like the guy was pretty special, and so I think Curry and Vick and Iverson coming out at the same time was really cool. And Vick just had this magic to him that I don't know if. Yeah, the iconic Sports Illustrated cover of Mr. Electric with the lightning bolts behind him. Little did we know something about Mr. Electric, that Georgia Tech game in 2000 with the lightning bolt behind Lane Stadium. So lightning does strike twice, I guess. Paul, we're going to move on to number 1. I want you to talk about what was the deciding factor between Michael Vick at number 2 and Tyrod Taylor at number 1.
I swear I didn't do this to be provocative. I really didn't. And the thing about subjective ratings is, what are you rating these guys on? And if this was a passing efficiency rating exercise, we would have had a different deal. If we would have had who was the best runner, who was the best. The way that I did this incorporated total wins, winning percentage, passing efficiency rating, rushing success, and my subjective adjustment based on intangibles, whether they, bowl success, leadership, how do they represent the program, where they had a decent pro career, that sort of thing. When it shook out, and I gave Vic more intangibles points than I did Tyrod by a fair amount. The fact of the matter is, Taylor had almost twice as many wins. He had twice as many passing yards. He had 800 more rushing yards. He had twice as many touchdowns. He contributed a lot longer because he was here a lot longer. we all wish we would have gotten one more year of Vick. And Vick said if NIL had been around in 2000, 2001, he would have played a third year at Tech. As it turns out, he decided to be the number one draft choice and go to the Falcons. This was more a numeric play than anything else, but I think about how happy and proud I am to call Tyrod Taylor a Virginia Tech quarterback, and the way he's represented himself, the length of his career, the way he's been able to represent his community. Those are all really awesome things to be proud to have somebody like that as a Tech alum. But the numbers are ridiculous: 7,000 yards passing, 2,196 yards rushing, 44 touchdowns passing, 23 touchdowns rushing, 34 wins, tops all time. He's a really good representative of our program, and the numbers are just pretty darn gaudy.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, and I might be butchering this because it's been 15 years, but I think at the time when he finished his career, he was one of only 2 college quarterbacks to finish with 7,000 passing yards and 2,000 rush yards. The other one was Colin Kaepernick at Nevada. And now, obviously, as the era has changed and running quarterbacks are far more prevalent, and people are throwing the ball more often as well, I'm sure there's numerous guys who have done that. But if I remember correctly, at the time, he was one of the first to ever do it.
Yeah, and for me, I was at that age where the guys I saw playing sports TV were like gods to me. And they felt so like he was the guy in the state of Virginia for 3 or 4 years. And he was so iconic and so special. And like when you were playing backyard football with your friends after school, you were pretending to be Tyrod Taylor if you grew up our age. And like when you saw his highlights and you saw him play, he was the greatest football player of all time. No. But in our heads and like for the Virginia Tech community and people around that area, he was. And he was a 5-star recruit out of Hampton. He came to Virginia Tech, played as a freshman. You saw it immediately. Like Virginia Tech played LSU in Death Valley that year in 2007 and got absolutely mollywopped, like ran off the field, embarrassing loss. They brought him in and he ran for like a 30-yard scamper. And it was, you knew immediately, like, this dude has it. And like you said, Paul, from that moment on to the time that he graduated and beyond until currently now when he's still with the New York Jets, you could not ask for a better representative of what it means to be a Hokie than Tyrod Taylor. And the games he won, the championships, the bowl games, the performances, the records. Brett, I'll have you this question. Why is a number 5 Taylor jersey not hanging up in Lane Stadium right now?
The day he retires from the NFL, it will be retired. I think they want him, they want to give him his flowers, and they want him to, they want to make it a big deal, I think. And, it's tough in the NFL during the football season to do that. So I think the day he retires, the first home game is when it'll happen. I honestly believe that.
I really hope you're right. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that just makes the most sense. That's typically what happens. It's rare that players get their numbers retired when they're still playing in the NFL. It's just from a timing standpoint. It depends on the camaraderie they want to have around it. I think for Tyrod, he's going to get the most. So, I think it makes sense for when he's done with the NFL. They'll make a big deal out of it. The one thing about Tyrod that I think people don't think about is there was never a doubt he wasn't coming to Virginia Tech. Pretty much, and that kind of attests to what you guys were talking about him representing us. He pretty much from the get-go, this is where I'm going. Obviously, the main reason he was coming here was because Michael Vick had just finished a career a few years before at a rival high school, but from the same area, similar quarterback, similar story, from a smaller, well, at the time was a hotbed, but still a smaller, area of players usually under recruited. Granted, he was a 5-star, but, there was never a doubt he wasn't coming here. Pretty much, I have, again, family from in that area and saw him play in high school, always repped us, and just another special player, just in college football and in for Virginia Tech history, obviously. And I think Paul made the correct decision. I think from a top 25 Hokie QBs, from a holistic standpoint, I think Tyrod is number one.
Is there any argument here? Because we're going to get a lot of comments, a lot of people saying Michael Vick clear number one. For me personally, Tyrod's far and away number one. But what's the argument for Mike, and what's the argument for maybe somebody else?
Yeah, I think
there is no argument for anyone else.
But I think if you had to make one, you go ahead, Irby. Sorry.
I was just going to say the argument for Mike is just pure like ability and I guess impact on the greater game of football as a whole, and notoriety, and especially the notoriety that he brought to Virginia Tech. Because I mean, that was Brett. You even mentioned like Tyrod was a lock to come here because of Michael Vick, right? So I don't know. I guess if you want to talk about impact on the university as a whole and the program, sure, maybe it's Vick, but ultimately Tyrod had the more complete career.
Yeah, people will say one of two things. They will say, who is the better quarterback, Michael Vick or Tyrod Taylor? And in some people's minds, Michael Vick is the better quarterback. Okay, there may be some argument there, but all the things that we just mentioned a minute ago you can't ignore them. The other argument would be he changed the game. He changed the town of Blacksburg. He changed the university. That impact is huge. This exercise was not to rank the people who had the most impact on Virginia Tech. They were trying to rank quantitatively and qualitatively who were the best quarterbacks. As I said at the beginning, you want to put Vick there? That's awesome. He was. I don't know where we'd be. We wouldn't be having this podcast if Michael Vick hadn't come to Tech, possibly. The numbers say that Tyrod Taylor is the best quarterback.
And Tyrod, too, had so many iconic wins, and I think we take for granted how good the teams were under him. And you always knew you were going to get a good performance. You always knew you were going to get his best. And we just showed the highlights there. I'm going to pull them up again because they're just awesome to watch, of the Nebraska game. And that great Tyrod did it, Mikey. Absolutely legendary. We'll never forget it. One of the greatest plays in Hokie history. First off, I always forget how much time was left. It's like a minute 20 left in that game. I always feel like it was last second. Really wasn't. There was like over a minute left. But you also have, his performance against Florida State at home, his performance against Cincinnati in the Orange Bowl, the ACC title games. He always showed up. He also beat Nebraska on the road the next season as well. Like, the dude was just special. And,
there's arguments that Bo Pelini beat Nebraska that day, but we can,
podcast for another day. Yeah.
Yeah. But still going there, getting a win is huge.
Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for our top 25 Hokie quarterbacks of the last 50 years. Number one overall, Tyrod Taylor. Ty God, as many call him. Hard to argue with it. Michael Vick, Logan Thomas, Jim Druckenmiller, and Brian Randall also in the top 5 there. I had a little exercise for you guys to round us out here before we head out. I was kind of thinking about build your perfect Hokie quarterback. I'm going to let you marinate on that for a little bit longer while Paul talks about some of the other Virginia Tech quarterbacks that didn't start a whole season, but had some important moments for the Hokies.
Yeah, there were 11 of them, and they started as few as 1 and as many as 7 games. Cam Young started the most. He started 7 during the Will Fuhrer era. He was a transfer from NC State when the transfer portal wasn't actually a thing. So he was transferring when transferring wasn't cool. When I look at these quarterbacks, a lot of them were you don't want to say forgotten quarterbacks, but they came in a pinch. You got your Colin Schlees, you got your Jeff Boltons, you got your Rod Wootens. I'm going to focus in on a couple of different ones. I'm going to focus on Quincy Patterson. Interesting thing about Quincy, he only had the one start. But man, what a memory do we have with him. Actually, a couple of them. But the one that I keep coming back to is the 6 overtime game, a game that he was the third-string quarterback and ended up being the star of the game. He was one of 3 quarterbacks in that game to throw a touchdown. But he had a fantastic run, a fantastic throw on 4th down into the end zone on that fade route. and then ultimately, obviously, the 2-point conversion to win the whole thing and setting off that celebration. Really good kid, really smart kid. Ended up playing he finished at Temple. I think he was at North Dakota State.
He was at North Dakota State for a hot minute and then finished at Temple. Yeah. But it's just never I'll say this about Quincy Patterson. Awesome guy, freak athlete, legendary game in the 6 overtime win against UNC at home. Almost got us an upset win at South Bend. Honestly, that one was a little more on the defense than it was on the offense. Where I sat for at that time was like right in front of where the quarterbacks would do their last warm-up throws before getting onto the field. And they do that from about 10 yards, and they'll throw to wide receiver hands the other quarterback, they throw, and then they move back to 15. We were struggling to hit the target from 10 yards away warming up. And I think it was like, if we had his career to do over again, like you put him at tight end and you just go with it. Like put him out at a slot tight end, you go with it. And he's a special, special player. I think he was a victim of the hype he got out of high school at the Elite 11 camp. And I forget who it was, but one of the other ESPN people said like multiple Heismans was the quote that came out of the Elite 11 camp. And I think he was a victim of the high school hype, and the Virginia Tech coaching staff didn't really know what to do with him other than run QB power left and QB power right.
Anybody have any opinions about Quincy?
Oh, I mean, I
think Sam summed it up.
I was bought in
perfectly,
completely, dude.
Yeah. QP3 baby.
Yeah,
who else we got on that list, Paul?
I wanted to talk really quickly about Pop Watson, then hand it off to y'all. He was the player of the year in high school up in Massachusetts. Everybody's favorite player is the backup quarterback. With all the struggles we were having in that position, we always love to see him come in, obviously. I would say his highlight was the 2024 win against Virginia. Just a terrible defense. I probably could have thrown for $150, but he had the moxie, he had the swagger, he had the sign up on the sideline afterwards. The great hair. Everybody felt good that night. Not sure he was ever really a P4 player, but a special athlete, and I think he's going to do really good things where he's at now.
I'll let Robert or Sam talk, but I have something to share about him. I'll see if I can find it. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I know where this is going, and it's the worst purchase of Brett's life. But I mean, you know, Sam, I think you and I were kind of on this train early on of like Pop is such a fun player, but we kind of always envisioned, you know, some Tuesday night action for him at UMass, and that's what he's going to do. And he's going to be like, if you're talking about former Hokies that went on to be in action, like he kind of can be that Khalil Pimpleton type of like Maction legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's going to be, even though he's tiny, he's going to be the most athletic
really
guy
good
on the field. And he's going to be a blast to watch. Like I can't wait to hear Chalamet rip off his name. The next time he's a guest picker on game day.
We made the jokes. And we made the jokes not at Pop Watson expense, but kind of at the expense of the program of Pop Watson, UMass starting quarterback. That ended up coming true. And that really wasn't about Pop as a player. It was more about the state of the program where like, yeah, Virginia Tech has this fun player who looks like really energetic, has some talent. We're not going to capitalize on him though. That's more what that was about. I just feel like at the end of the day, water finds its level. And for the most part in the transfer portal, that's what we see. And I think he's a player who's going to go there, start the whole season and look really good. Like, that's probably what you're going to see. That UMass team is horrific. That's not going to be Pop Watson's fault though. Brett, what do you have there in your hands?
Yeah. So I think Sam and Irby have seen this before, but I don't know if Paul has. So I made a promise. I said, if Pop Watson leads us to a UVA win, I would purchase his custom jersey. And so I bought one. Tag still on it, but I bought one, and after beating UVA, obviously, you know, that means a lot to me. So I told myself, you know, him coming in, and honestly, if he like barely won, I probably wouldn't have bought it. But the fact that he went in there and B2A'd them was pretty awesome. So I think it's a funny memory I'll keep, and people are going to be like, my kids or people are like, who the hell is Watson the third? Who was he? Now I have a great story behind it. So
that game was
$30
so
later.
That game was so
Yeah.
cold. That was
that
freezing cold football game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I was in like a perfect state of mind either, watching it with like all my friends and family when I decided to make that decision. But
Cold is cold.
yeah,
Like a little beer blanket can only take you so far. That was a
Exactly.
chilly game. All right, so our exercise, build the perfect Hokie quarterback. I gave you what ended up being 6 categories to build your Hokie quarterback: athleticism, size and strength, arm talent, moxie, leadership, and football IQ. Paul, you are the czar of Hokie quarterbacks from now on, so you get to start. Just list out all of your guys you had for each one.
Okay. And the way that I did this, I'm hoping I'm following the rules correctly. Only one quarterback can be in each category.
Correct. And also, there
Okay.
are no rules. This is literally make it up as we go along, pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Athleticism, Michael Vick. Shocker.
No way.
Size and strength, Logan Thomas. Arm talent, Hendon Hooker. Moxie, Tyrod Taylor. Leadership, Brian Randall. Football IQ, Will Fuhrer.
The Hooker addition there for arm strength is honestly pretty underrated. I think people kind of underrated how beautiful of a deep ball he threw.
Absolutely. Robert, you're up next. You build your
All right, yeah.
perfect Hokie quarterback.
I have a lot of similarities, but a couple differences. So athleticism, Michael Vick. Size and strength, Logan Thomas. For arm talent, I went with Jim Druckenmiller. Honestly, thought about doing him for size and strength as well. Moxie, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he was just a baller, like straight up. He was awesome. Leadership, Brian Randall, and then football IQ. I actually went with Jerod, and I think there's maybe the most underrated aspect of Jerod's game was he was so cerebral on the field, and that ECU run that we showed kind of was part of it. Was he just had this sense of where all 11 ECU defenders were, and he really was this point guard to this immensely talented offense, and he knew the right buttons to push. I think he only threw like 4 interceptions all season. He rarely put the ball in harm's way. And he was just a really, really smart quarterback that I think is one of the brightest on the field we've ever had.
Robert, I want to agree with you there, and maybe for a slightly different reason than you might expect, but my recollection of that season with Jerod is they tailored the playbook to him so that he didn't need to make 5 reads or 3 reads or 4 reads. I hate to call him a 1-read quarterback because that sells him short, but there's this concept of do one thing and do it well, or play within your structure and don't try to do too much. That actually takes some cerebral talent not to play off script and that sort of thing. He knew the role. He knew the roles everybody around him. He knew how good they were, and he did the things that he needed to do, and he made the right decisions. And there's IQ in that.
definitely.
Absolutely. Brett, build your perfect quarterback.
I mean, me going third here, I mean, you're going to hear a lot of the same.
I tried to go different. So if you're the same, it's okay. We'll mix it up a bit.
Athleticism, obviously, with Michael Vick. Size and strength, I went with Logan Thomas as well. Arm talent, I had Druckenmiller, but I want to point out, I think Ryan Willis had an extremely talented arm.
It's a good one, yeah.
I really think he did. And I said, my good friend who's a manager for 5 years there said he threw the prettiest ball and the hardest, not that you only need to throw it as hard, but that he'd ever seen in his 5 years there. So I'm going to throw Ryan Willis in there just to be different for arm talent, because I really think he had it there. Moxie, I think Tyrod is obvious. I think he's the obvious pick there. Leadership, Paul with Brian Randall, I think that's a great pick. That's who I had as well. Football IQ, I had Jerod Evans as well. Irby, I think to what you said, I think he was very cerebral. He didn't make many mistakes. Hard to make mistakes when you can throw up a ball to two guys that are all going to come down with it every time. So, I mean, that's obvious, for that aspect of it, you can't ignore that. But, I always said Michael Brewer was a pretty cerebral QB. He didn't make many mistakes. He was really tough, but he did what needed to be done most of the time. He didn't do above, but I think my pick for football IQ is definitely Jerod. So my difference was Willis outside of, and I think everything else was the same for Irby.
I think Willis is a good pick there. That the scared money don't make money throw itself. Like that's a crazy arm strength play. I tried to mix
Moxie as well.
Arguably Moxie. If that's what the kids are calling it these days, I think offline we might call it something else. But Ryan Willis left it all out on the field. We'll put it that way. I will go. Mine are tried to do a little bit different. Athleticism, I went Jerod. One of the reasons I went Jerod was because I saved Vick for something else. But also Jerod's ability to get hit and keep moving forward is really rare from the quarterback position. I don't think we realize how many like read options he ran up the middle or right off tackle that he got like 7 or 8 yards, where most quarterbacks, even big quarterbacks, get 4 or 5. He was always falling forward, and the ability to be shifty like that and have the speed. On that highlight we showed when that run against ECU, the announcer says it reminded him of some guy named Steve Young running. Just the ability to make all 11 players on the field miss, sometimes the same guy twice. Like he had the whole breadth of athleticism. So that's why I'm giving that to Jerod. Size, strength. Quincy Patterson was a big dude. Like he was a big. His arms did not look correct at the quarterback position. Like I think he was a special athlete, and I wanted to get his size, strength in there. Arm talent, Michael Vick. The flick of the wrist.
Yeah.
And then it goes 60 yards down the field, the tight spiral, I think the accuracy while also doing like a 5-step drop out of the I formation, people don't think about. People don't also think about he was making those throws, not a very big guy. Like he was below the line of scrimmage a lot of times when he was looking to throw the ball. So Michael Vick's arm talent just one of one, truly, for a guy that size. Moxie, I went Michael Brewer. I was sitting on the hill when
I like that.
When Michael Brewer threw up in the second half against UVA and they had to stop the game to clean it up, he was only out like 2 plays. The second they could get him a fresh jersey, he came back in that game, threw the touchdown pass to Isaiah Ford to win that one. Like Michael Brewer, that's a guy you go to war with. Absolutely. Leadership, I went Tyrod. Not only did he lead the football team, but I think he led the program for multiple years. And you see what he's been in the NFL. You always hear guys on the team love him. No matter what team he goes to, they love Tyrod. And I think that's a really special. And then for IQ, I went Brian Randall, somebody who handled kind of a tumultuous situation really well, kept his head on his shoulders, won a lot of football games, led the team. I'm going to go Brian Randall.
Sam, it's fun. The arm talent thing with Michael Vick. I asked my dad these questions. And before I even finished arm talent, he said Michael Vick. He said,
yeah,
he said it was just silly what he could do with the football.
In athleticism, we could have given some love to Quincy Patterson there, to be honest.
Yeah, to be that big and that fast is rare.
And Logan Thomas.
Yeah,
Logan Thomas.
They called Quincy Thick Vic for a reason,
Yep. I mean, I'll never forget. Logan Thomas could have ran for miles on that play against Miami. I think Virginia Tech is not known as a quarterback school, but guys doing this exercise and reading Paul's articles, just so many special players and special moments have played quarterback for Virginia Tech, and all of them have been tough, hard-nosed, moxie guys, not afraid to get hit, made big plays, played in some big games. No pressure, Ethan. None at all.
Here's a fun question. Just a hypothetical, and I don't know if we should answer this, but we will. Where do we think Ethan Grunkemeyer can land on this list?
Stop it. No.
No, because here's what I think is interesting about that.
We do know what he's capable of, though. It's not like he's totally.
Chris Coleman from Tech Sideline has been saying this. We've said it on the show. Other people have said it. Statistically, most accurate Virginia Tech quarterback of all time, what he did last year. Like in terms of throwing the ball to guys wearing the same color jerseys he's wearing, which is pretty damn important. I don't know.
Didn't
I don't
throw
think
it
he has
deep very often.
He doesn't have the
It
athletic
was a little Bo
tools.
Nix-ish.
He doesn't have the athletic tools, but in terms of I think he could be like Michael Brewer plus.
Oh, I think better. I don't know if I'm drinking.
Well, Michael Brewer plus wins a lot of Michael Brewer plus.
Yeah.
Plus.
I think that top 4 of Taylor, Vick, Randall, and Druck is kind of infallible at this stage. I guess
you got to do something special.
Yeah,
even Logan Thomas, you got to put up numbies.
And the thing is about Logan is he had some really rough moments at quarterback, especially after that first year once Danny Cole and Boykin and all those guys left. Didn't have, he's trying to find Corey Fowler and Dimitri Knowles out there. It just wasn't the same. So, yeah, if Grunk keeps this efficiency that he had at Penn State up and we're able to win as many games as we hope that James Franklin will allow us to win, maybe he could crack the top 5.
I think he definitely can have a better career than Marcus Vick, Sean Glenn, and Hendon Hooker. I think for sure. And then
Jerod was only one season. So
yeah, and you go to Jerod, DeShazo, Logan Thomas, Druck, Randall, Vick, Taylor. So I think it's not out of the question for him to have a better career than to be in that top 10.
If you look at the people on this list and you think about, obviously they're there for their own talents, they're also there for their circumstances. I'm optimistic, and I think I'm rightfully optimistic that the tools that are around Ethan this year and next year are going to surpass many of the quarterbacks in the bottom 15 or the bottom, 14 of this list. So I feel like he's already standing on first base when he takes the field. I know I'm mixing my metaphors here, but I think he's in a better spot than a lot of quarterbacks that he would be competing with on this list. The rest of it's on how are we going to succeed on the field, and it sure does look promising.
And we will find out September 5th, I believe it is, VMI, when the Grunkemeyer era starts. We'll find out pretty quickly. I'm very excited to see it. Paul, I can't explain enough how awesome the series you wrote was. If you haven't read it, go read it on sunsaturday.com. We also have awesome stuff covering the baseball and softball programs that are both off to phenomenal starts in the Diamond Sports season, as well as wrapping up the men's and women's basketball seasons. They have a lot left to play as well. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you, Paul, and to Robert and Brett. We will have plenty more Memory Lane episodes coming up throughout the rest of the offseason. And as always, go Hokies.